Good evening. Welcome to our, let's see here, today is October 22nd, 2024. And tonight we're going to have a strategic planning workshop. Appreciate everyone being here this evening. Ms. Silly, would you call roll call?
Mayor Nina Rodenroth.
Here.
Vice Mayor Christine Thompson. Here. Councilman Tony Brown.
Here.
Councilman Elsie C. Hustler.
Here.
Councilman Dan Lewandowski.
Here.
All present, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
You are so fine.
It's a very sensitive microphone.
Actually.
Tonight, we are in our beginning planning, so we talked about strategic planning earlier in the year. Actually, we had 2 different meetings where we talked about strategic planning. It's been a couple of years since we've taken a revised look at things. Felt like it's a good time for us to do that again. And so we are going to be looking at some different items here on the agenda to look at our next path forward as far as how we're going to get into the details of the strategic planning. So, Dan, I know that you had submitted some materials that you wanted to share, and I thought you maybe could go into some of your handout or attachments that you provided first, because I know some of them have been shared previously, just to give maybe a 20,000-foot view of what you have come up with.
Great.
And then I can share some things that I've identified, and anyone else on council who would like to share some of their ideas.
Thank you.
Sure.
So, first brought this up at our council meeting in February, and then I brought it up again at our council meeting in April, and then this summer we had a professor, I forget his name, Mr. Saviak, Professor Saviak. He gave us a presentation about strategic planning. Dr. Saviak, okay. In the interim, we've had documents. We had a parks plan that was contracted out and presented to us. We had a smart cities plan that was contracted out and presented to us. And then I discovered that back in 2011, Keystone Heights had a 225-page comprehensive plan. I went, oh my goodness, we should look at that. And City of Stark also has a comprehensive plan. Theirs is also over 200 pages. And Clay County has a comprehensive plan. In all, when you take all the plans together from the contractors and the other examples, there's more than 700 pages of documents that I've looked at coming into this meeting. And what I did was, for today's meeting, I created a 1-page outline. And you'll note that my observation after doing all this reading and everything is that it seems like there seems to be a state of Florida template, a state of Florida standard for how to write a comprehensive plan. And you should have these things in it. And so, starting with city water and sewer, and going on down the list, you can see Keystone Heights and its plan for 2011, Clay County and its current plan for 2040, Stark and its plan, I forget the date on here, updated 2022. All these parts are in all these plans. So I don't know why. Maybe this is how funding is done in Tallahassee. Maybe this is how the grants are oriented and who approves what kind of grants in Tallahassee. But it seems to me that this template of these topics is what we should follow. And I think all of our stuff will fit in here. We have a parks plan. Well, that would fit under the recreation and open space category. Okay, let's use our parks plan and put it in there. Let's look at what we used to have in our recreation and open space section and put it there. And when it comes to our smart cities plan, well, let's pick the things we want out of that, find what parks they go into in this outline, and take the smart cities ideas that we like and put them into this here outline. So if we do agree that this is a good outline, then we're not going to make this happen today. And I know that we've talked about doing this in the past, is figuring out who's gonna try to attempt what things. And divide up, maybe council members, parts of the staff, that kind of thing. Who would be responsible for what section? And this is why we have another meeting scheduled in December, because we'll use the time between now and December to start to get to work on it. Hold meetings with Clay County Utility Authorities, hold meetings with citizens of Keystone Heights, hold meetings with whatever we need to do to try to start to develop the plan. And I gotta tell you, reading the Keystone Heights plan, it was eye-opening to me. It was really well done. It had some, I'll call it PhD level analysis of our soils and our water in the area, and where you could construct things based on the ground that there was. It was impressive, very impressive what was in here. So that's how I start off. I hand it over to the mayor to go from there.
What I'd like to do is ask Mr. Brown to give us some archival information on what you know as far as anything strategic planning or comprehensive planning in your tenure here.
Okay, comprehensive plan was done by Growth Management Committee, which I was part of that, the mayor at the time was part of that, and we had a couple citizens that were part of that committee also. But to do all that, and you said it was well done, we had a planner that we contracted with that put us and helped us with all that, because it is very detailed. It is older, but it covers a lot of information. I haven't read it in years, but we, as a council, just didn't do that on our own. We had somebody that had the knowledge and the experience and the education behind it to do something of that magnitude. One of the biggest things that you probably found in there is trees. Trees was a very important thing. To have trees replaced, if you go in and start cutting down a bunch of trees like the development and stuff like that, you have, and that's one of the things we've had with the development, we've had over on Sunrise, from both developers that have had that property, and it's because that piece of document that protects the trees and what they have to replace if they have to take anything out. So I don't know what else you want me to tell you. I mean, it is very detailed, and does it need to be looked at and redone and added to? Yes.
Well, Mayor and Council, legally, it has to be looked at every 7 years pursuant to statute. So the statute requires what's called an evaluation and appraisal report, which you'll hear called peer amendments in other governments. So we go through this process. Sometimes that process finds that there are changes, items that have been preempted by the state. There are certain things that are found unconstitutional, like most recent one was a Supreme Court case called Reed versus Gilbert, Arizona, where they declared sign ordinances invalid, and we redid which is why we have a 80-page sign ordinance now, was in response to that. The reason, Councilman Lewandowski, that you see the similarity is because planners, just like many of the professionals, all go to the same conferences and they track kind of the same formats as they build those things. So most of them aren't reinventing the wheel. It's not a state requirement, it's really the professional planners that follow that format.
Yes, and it's, so are you saying every 7 years is the comprehensive plan, or does the strategic plan feed into the comprehensive plan?
It can, but that's not a statutory requirement.
Okay, the comprehensive plan is.
It has to be reviewed every 7 years.
Okay. Because from my research, and I've been looking at a lot of documents ever since we talked about doing this, and everything that I could see is you start with a strategic plan, and you keep it a 20,000-foot view, and then you drill down based on the very specific look, keeping it very simple, because you can really get wrapped around the fence trying to understand. Just like Dan said, there's a lot of moving parts, all the data and the information, and identify specific buckets for things like you want to do. within the city. And, you have an outcome of based on your vision statement on how that all matches up. But this is all done with community interest. Like we have meetings, we have day-long workshops where folks come and assist us and give us input on those different buckets and what they feel about what we're adding into them. And so it's a very specific way for the strategic plan, and from that, then it's much easier to develop a comprehensive plan, because now you're into the weeds, into some of the other ancillary things that feed into what that strategic plan looks like.
I think you just do the strategic plan as an ongoing review.
Okay.
And then I would feed that into your comprehensive plan, because that's statutory requirement.
Right.
So it's the same type of
It gives us
process.
a starting point, which I think we don't really have except for what was done in 2012.
But remember, your comprehensive plan only applies to land use. There's other aspects
Correct.
of your kind of city governance that I would imagine you want your strategic plan to cover.
And that's what I noticed too, was mainly about land use and things like that.
It's only about land use.
Right, so it didn't really, to me, approach some of the things that I saw in my research, with looking at what it might look like. One of the, examples that I looked at was, you involve leadership, business, and citizens, and what do they want our future to look like? You have community conversations. We have long, full-day workshops where we invite the citizens to join us. We create a roadmap that uncovers the best way to serve the community. Identify the priorities, the goals, and the objectives. And it starts with your strategic priorities. And that it begins with a vision statement, which we do have one that's pretty old, I think, and then a mission statement. And after that, we identify our core values. From there, you put those together and you create what I call buckets or categories to identify what your priorities are. And when you talk about, and I say that we each need to come up with what would those look like. For example, I identified some priorities. I looked at, for example, infrastructure. The Parks Plan plays into that because it involves 22 acres of space in town. The corner, the China Chef situation with that change there. Capital improvement in the city, things that we have to pay money for, things like whether it's drainage, could be road repair, things like that. The large streetscape, how, the monies that go into that. All of these have a dollar figure attached. City Hall renovation, I know we're gonna be doing a facelift, but 10 years from now, we may look at doing something different. Parking, looking at needs for the public, they want parking. So, my buckets were infrastructure, sustainability, community, local economic development. And really, we could identify tons of different projects that we, or things that we think need to play into this. But I think it takes a little time and it takes a plan. And then from that, I think we can come together with what it really should look like at the end. And then really play it up into a comprehensive plan, like you're saying, and what those elements apply to a comprehensive plan. Do you all have comments? Yes? Speaking? I did look into, like you mentioned, and Dan, like you said, there are templates, like you said, and there are folks that give you guidance on how to do this. And I see that Florida State University of South Florida provides Florida Institute of Government strategic planning and vision services. So they have a facilitator who comes in to help keep you focused and in line with the goals. So we don't get all kind of spread out all over the place, because we all have our opinions on what we think something should be. But, I think we sometimes go down different roads too, and it just kind of helps us to stay in line with a common goal, and then we can branch it out as we go on into it. I don't even know what they charge for those services. I do know that I know some folks who use their services. I can find out what that might look like. But it's kind of like someone to keep us focused on the task at hand.
I would highly recommend having someone else. with streetscapes before we ever did any of that. Our engineering firm was in this building, and we had business owners, we had residents, and they had a computer thing that you could score stuff. They just put it on the screen, and you could, score it that way. That helped get the data put together for us to have to look at. I definitely do not think that we, no disrespect to any of us at this dais, but we don't have the expertise to do something of this nature, but to, either go with the league, get them to help us with that,
Yeah, I did look into their
and,
website.
or, we hire a planner to come in, and the one we had, Susan Fraser at the time, and I think she's still out in Jacksonville, but,
She's not working as much anymore though. I mean, there's a number of different
there's,
people that do
yeah,
that.
there's plenty of them out there.
But I'll give you an idea, we did the sign ordinance with Susan
Yeah.
6 years ago, 7 years ago, that was $40,000. Now, there
It
are
won't be cheap.
some governments that look at full comp plan overhauls. I had one client now that I think the bids came in at around $300,000.
Wow, that's cool.
So,
They usually want to do it or something.
well, so usually smaller municipalities try to make more incremental changes than broad sweeping changes, because they'll try to look for, if you wanna make a change to one, does everybody know how a comp plan's put together before I start with this? So your comprehensive plan on land use is comprised of 3 different major things that you see in it. We'll have goals, policies, and objectives. So if you wanna change a goal, policy, or objective, we can do that in-house. When you wanna go through your sweeping changes, that's where what Councilman Brown's talking about, bringing in consultants.
And you can see that's how this is organized in my template here, my outline. What they do is for each of these, as they talk about, say, so for example, capital improvements element, data and analysis. What that means is a picture of where we're at right now. What do we look like? What is the need? And then they go into the second part, which is capital improvements again, but goals, objectives, and policies. And they do that pretty much for every single area. Where are we at and where do we need to go? And as much as I would love to involve professionals, A, it's expensive, but B, I don't feel like they know our community. I mean, I'll take, for example, the lady who did the parks plan. She presented a plan and she didn't even include our existing parking lot in the northern section of the natural park. She didn't hold one meeting with the people of the city of Keystone Heights, not one. And so I am leery of outsiders coming in and telling us what they think we need. However, I totally agree that we probably don't have all the expertise that we need to write this plan. So we do need some help. The question is, where's the balance between these two things?
Well, I don't know if I'm gonna use that microphone. Can y'all hear me?
We were using it, it wasn't working.
I know.
It's-
I think somebody cut it off on me. When we did the comp plan, like I said, we had a planner with us. I don't think, Rich, I think it was Rob that was here.
It was last time.
And Rob Bradley would come in as our attorney and advise us too. But it was a committee, the Growth Management Committee, which has not been active in several years. And that's, council, a couple council, and then, citizens. And, I would, I don't know if I'm out of place to say this, but I would hope that we're going to be going out for engineers.
We have, so we sent an RFQ out on say Tuesday. Friday, Monday, last Friday, for a multiple city engineers, sent it to everybody that's expressed interest. So, as soon had different things that they were really good at, and we felt we might need both, we could take on two more and then negotiate contracts with them.
I just don't feel comfortable for myself going and doing research and doing some of the detailed work that's gonna be done with something like this.
Well, I think the hard part is to not be biased also. I think we each have our own ways that we learn and do things. And to me, if we have a facilitator who has a format that they use that applies versus like what you're saying, Dan, and I agree with you, that's what happened with this plan that we presented in January. We didn't have any input into what was put into it or conversations with the community, which I think was a big miss. But they have a specific template that is used throughout the state, and it has specific questions, you know, so what is your vision? What are your core values? And then we and our citizens give that input. That person that can't tell us what that is because they wouldn't know. All they're doing is getting input from us, managing the information, collecting it, helping us to format it the way it should be laid out. And then we take it and we plug it into the comprehensive, where it applies for land use, et cetera. Some of these things may not be about land use.
I agree with that.
You know what I mean? And, you know, yeah, it may cost us a little bit of money, but I think that it's probably gonna save us some time. It's gonna keep us focused.
You can get a strategic planner, like I don't know what USF or FSU are charging, but you see those in the neighborhood of $7,000 to $15,000.
That's like I said, this one was at University of South Florida, and Jacksonville Beach used it. And I can certainly find out pretty quick how much they
But
cost.
they'll do so much more. You know, a comp plan is just such a limiting section of what you do. And candidly, most of what a comp plan or comprehensive plan is designed to do for a local government, whether you're a municipality or whether you're a county. What you're trying to do is you're trying to figure out where do you want to see growth? What do you want that growth to look like? Where do you want your commercial core to look like? Is it changing where you want to have a transition from commercial to residential and you have mixed use in between? To be quite candid with y'all, we don't have that problem because there's nowhere else to grow. So I wouldn't waste a whole lot of time on your comp plan. Spend more time on your vision and strategy. Because I'll tell you, from everything, I've been working with the city now for 12 years. Everything I've seen with our city, we want to have that old historic Florida feel, that place that has a nostalgic place where people can live. We're not just a bedroom community for Jacksonville. There are certain components that I think need to be massaged within the comp plan, but we don't have this big 70-acre tract of land where we're trying to figure out should that be industrial, commercial, warehouse, something for the airport or something for us. So because you don't have those things, you still have very real needs. Putting on a Christmas market, creating entertainment venues for the band shell, people coming to the lakes. Those are all things that I would imagine you're going to want to address is what the vision is for how the city operates.
So it looks like we have to decide what we're gonna do first. We have the legal obligation for our comp plan, but we also need a strategic plan which covers more at a higher level than the comp plan. Do we wanna have two separate efforts going simultaneously? And I'll just add, because he hasn't said this himself, when we created our vision statement and mission statement, we have the mayor at that time sitting with us. He was in the seat when we did it. So, I know that he's got the background for it.
Before that, we didn't have anything.
Yeah, true, we didn't.
Our vision statement currently is Keystone Heights is a safe, environmentally healthy, and economically thriving community for all its citizens and visitors now and for future generations. Does that say who we are?
I would say that's a good thing to think about now, and then when you do your strategic planning, make a decision then as to do you want to keep it exactly like it is, do you want to amend it? That's a good starting place.
I agree, but I think with everything that's gone on since this was done, I think water should be put in there, the lakes.
I agree.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah, Ms. James, would agree.
The vision statement for Jacksonville Beach just did theirs, in the last year or two, is a vibrant coastal community that embraces the beach life. And their mission statement, was they wanted a responsible government focused on safety, service, and sustainability.
Those are good, short.
Yep.
That's exactly what you wanna do. Core values: empowerment, pride, integrity, communication, and teamwork. Now, you know, I like the simplicity because, they took a lot of projects, things that they feel the community wants, and they put them, as I call them, the buckets for strategic priorities. And then they kept those priorities down to 2 goals with 2 objectives each. It's very, very simple, concise, focused, and it makes it more doable to me, like more realistic, versus a lot of words and things that don't really go nowhere. And like I said, the folks that helped them was from the University of South Florida.
Well, you're good also, and Charlie's done a very good job with that. So when you move through your daily operations, sometimes you get so far in the weeds. Your core values and your mission statement are a good place to say, I still consistent with that. I'm not calling you just so we're clear.
Ron DeSantis.
I wasn't invited
Please do
to.
your cell phone.
So it's a good check for everybody that works for the city. Make sure, like, Charlie, make sure we're consistent with Charlie. Charlie will go check with the ordinances. This is another good check to, are we in line with what the direction from the council should be?
And I really like the idea, because and I think theirs went over for almost 2 years by the time they finally came up to the comprehensive plan. But they had several full-day workshops where citizens and business owners attended. And they literally just did brainstorming, like, you know, tell me what you think about this or that, like you were saying, Tony, it gives them a feeling of empowerment by being able to be involved. Yeah, and, you know, you're, like you said, they were tracking, like, the responses and stuff. And you just kind of go with what's the, most powerful, the thing that has the most, comments, I guess.
So I've probably done this a half a dozen times. Every time I move around the Air Force, you know, they make you move every 2 years. Okay, and so we get a new commander, we gotta go through this whole thing again. What's our vision statement? Everybody does it. You know, we get a bunch of stickies, and we get some boards, and we write down things, and we put them on the boards or stickies and all that kind of stuff. And that's kind of what I think we need. You know, a bunch of people brainstorming ideas on stickies and put them on boards, and, you know, what are the major areas? I mean, in general, I think we kind of have 3 areas. I would say O&M. I'm going back to my military. Operations and maintenance. What do we do on a day-to-day basis? O&M. Second is, I'll call them events. What does this city celebrate, and how much of an effort do we put towards it? And are we growing it? Are we shrinking it? What events? And then the third is infrastructure. Sewers. Are we going to transfer out a septic tanks? Are we going to make some of the dirt roads in town into paved roads? Are we going to give curbs to some places where we don't have curbs on the roads? What else are we going to do infrastructure-wise?
If we talk a lot about speed bumps, we talk a lot about, do we need a new city hall? And the neat thing is when you start brainstorming and draw all those things up on the whiteboard or however you do it, it gives you the ability to discuss with your citizens, what are our top 3 priorities, because there's not a money there. So you're gonna have to limit it based on what the financial capabilities are.
And we did that with the comprehensive plan, and we did that when you were first on the council, we had that workshop, we had all the sticky notes up there.
But you also have to tie, so doing the plan is fantastic, and Mayor, I hear you talk about things like this too. Then you need an action item and a date where you're gonna accomplish it, otherwise that plan just does not show.
That's exactly right. You know,
But I'm also saying, I think there is value in starting to work on the comprehensive plan at the same time. I don't think we need to wait on that.
and maybe, you know, what happens is once we get to the, in the strategic plan, we go, okay, this needs to go into that regular comprehensive plan. And it starts building as we go along. Even though it's still in the strategic, then it moves over to the comprehensive, and then we just go back and refresh that, but, so it's like a working document.
It is, and there may be places in here where we go, okay, we're not gonna work on the section of the comprehensive plan, because we need the strategic plan to give us guidance.
Right.
So we'll skip that part of the comprehensive plan and we'll move on to somewhere else.
Well, you can also, so what you just described is how our charter review commission for the city works every 4 years. So they're tasked with, like, read so many chapters in between meetings. If everything's fine, you leave it alone. But if there's things you want to change, then they come back with a list of things they want changed. And from where you sit, you have your P and Z board. That's something I would say you can delegate to them to workshop that for you and then bring back recommendations to you.
Well, I would say there's different sections for different people. For example, the first section of this is called Clay County Utility Authority. It's about our city water and our sewer system. Clay County Utility is the experts on it. They wrote the whole section. Well, take it back to them and say, here, update please. You know, so different sections for different places. Planning and zoning certainly is one of them.
The Keystone Heights master plan that we're all familiar with, it was presented in January. I went through it and pulled out different parts in the projects that were shared at the presentation in January. And I did look at the costs involved for the individual elements, which I had not looked at before. To complete all the landscaping in the city that gave us the connectivity that we were talking about doing, meaning all this landscape she talked about for the beautiful sidewalks and the paths and all that are going to connect the 23 acres space, connecting all the 4 parks, I believe. That cost of that was $500,000 to $1 million. The resilient for marketing, they applied some services in there for us to market our town, $50,000. Climate adaptation, not sure what that meant exactly, unless it meant with things like water sprinklers, stuff like that. I didn't look at the details of that. $150,000. Connecting the corridors and the lighting, which I thought was something really special because it does for the kids and the safety. And be lights that come on automatically at dusk and to create a better atmosphere because there's some areas that are a little dark than others. That was $500,000 to $1.5 million. Unified park system, connecting the parks, meaning they all have, she talked about the beach parks, talked about Azalea Park, Sunrise, even the trails area, restrooms like we brought up, which I agree we should have restrooms over there. That was $2 to $5 million to do that. Septic to sewer, that is coming. I think that's going to be a state thing coming soon, from what I'm hearing at the mayor
It was a
meetings.
state thing 9 years ago.
What?
It was a state thing 9 years ago.
It's still not. Oh, I know they keep talking about it at the meetings.
They talk about it all the time, and what happens is there's not money to do it.
Yeah, it's a
So
lot of money.
the cost to each resident, I mean, I've heard connection charges are roughly around $20,000 per resident,
Sounds about right.
My brother-in-law just did it, $18,000.
which is why you don't see governments pushing it. But there's
Right.
actually laws on the book that say
There's laws in.
if you're within so many feet, or if you have to repair more than a certain percentage, and I don't remember what those thresholds are, you're supposed to connect to the actual sewer.
This estimate she gave us was $4 to $6 million for the city as a whole. The digital twin, the smart city, as Dan refers to it, really what that was, just for clarification, was to track our
Resource.
capital assets in the city, meaning trash cans, benches, lights, generally, it's other things, drainage. It takes like real life pictures so that it can feed back to the office, let us know we have a problem, it tracks it and details it, keeps it, so we have the verbal communication. And we did pay some money to have, the county did pay, TPO paid for that to be done. And then if we were to, as far as I know, we did not enter into a contract for that. And to do that, to continue with that, was gonna be $25,000 a year for them to monitor it. And then to do the asset management, meaning re-tagging those different items, was gonna cost another $35,000 a year. But we did not do either one of those. So all they did was came and did it, demonstrated how it works, and here we are. We haven't really moved forward with anything with that. But as a whole, that complete, assessment there, that master plan equaled, as beautiful as it was, around $13 million. And since then, you know, we listened to the community hollered about it. They didn't like the idea of things going to Sunrise Park, and they felt like it's too far away, it's not centrally located. And we've been able to capture some funding to get the tennis courts redone, to have a fresh up on the basketball court, some things at the beach park there, just kind of picking from that plan, which I think we can still do. There's some other things within that plan I'd like to see us include in town here, but I think there's still work to be done. It's really what does the community want? And, but that's kind of what that plan was about. At least we have some idea for numbers. And to me, we have to kind of know what some of these numbers are in order to think about strategically where they will fall, you know, per year, in a 5-year plan or even a 10-year plan. But I think the benefits of that whole plan really, to me, was it helped us identify cost and it did create a vision. And it's just not something we could afford. And I just think it's something for us to kind of look at and, you know, take bits and pieces of it away.
And some parts of this, just remember, if you incorporate it into your strategic plan, that then prompts you to be able to apply for some grant funding for those things as well.
Correct. Yes.
But if you don't even have it as part of your plan, you make your grant application
You won't get it.
much less successful.
It has to be in your plan. That's right. That's what I was reading as well.
The other part, I agree with that, and the other part to that is putting some skin in the game, put it in your strategic plan. If it costs $200,000, you say the city's gonna come up with $40,000, we're asking the Florida legislature to come up with $160 or the grant or whatever it is. I mean, if it's in the plan and you've applied money to it, you're not just totally like that, you get better success.
The handout stuff never makes it to the final budget, and even if it does, it gets rejected.
And we've always, when we've done grants, we've always had to put something in there from the city. So that's something we just have to.
There are some non-matching grants, but not as a general rule. Most of the times when I see a non-matching, it's the public safety, we see them for police and fire, right? So what Charlie was describing almost always has some type of match expectation.
Okay.
So I think we've done a wonderful job of looking back and in the present. What we really, really need to do is set up action items and what we're going to do in the future and who is going to do what. That's what I think is the most important thing coming out of this meeting.
I think we need to find a facilitator. Keep us on track.
Like a university person.
That does municipalities, government type strategic planning. So that's their focus.
But as Charlie calls around, honestly, most facilitators are gonna ask what scope you're really looking at, because that's gonna be how they gauge what their quote is to you.
I think it starts with strategic planning. And there's things that will move over to the comprehensive plan, buckets, like that template, like Dan's referring to. But I think we gotta know who's on first.
So if we have over 700 pages of plans and somewhere in a shoebox, a bunch of sticky notes, the 700 pages are in a couple of different documents. Who is gonna go through those and say, these are still things we're wanting to do, we don't wanna do these anymore? Would you guys like to take a stab at that and give it to me to kind of collate? And I'm not, before we go have another sticky note session and Good Idea Fairy comes and does her thing, it sounds like we've got a lot of stuff that it was established somewhere along the way. We need to find out what is still relevant and what isn't.
So this is from 2012, right?
2011, April of
I have
2011.
a copy of this, one of the old past mayors sent that to me. And, so that's not that.
April 2011.
Sorry, which document are you talking?
The City of Keystone Heights Comprehensive Plan.
See,
I have a copy
we
of
missed
that.
our ear amendment, which we should have done, and usually you see those that have 10-year blocks. So you'll see the 2020 comp plan, and you'll see the 2030 comp plan, 2040 comp plan.
So if we hit it in 2025, we'll be on the 7-year iteration.
Well, maybe I could suggest this. Let's do a, small chunk, not trying to do the whole thing. And say, let's do strategic planning for, and pick one of these 3 big buckets that I said. Events, O&M, or infrastructure.
I think you can do all three. I think it'll help you on prioritization.
I mean, I jotted them down myself just yesterday, but I thought it was pretty easy to me from what I know right now.
I think organically, even if you pick one, you're gonna end up in all three.
Okay,
That, yeah, I did have some that led into other buckets.
I mean, are we okay with those 3 big buckets? For strategic planning? Is there another bucket that I missed something?
I think there's a lot of things that fall within those categories.
I think infrastructure should be on the top of the list.
I had infrastructure, sustainability, community, and local economic development.
So your sustainability is O&M. I mean, you're just using different words for the same concepts. Your infrastructure, unfortunately, Councilman Brown, is always the most expensive because then you're talking about sewers, roads, drainage.
But we talked, like Dan said, there's things that we've talked about that we've never implemented. And one of them is storm drain, or the storm stuff. And with our lanes coming up and all, and I mean, I don't know if you come out when it's storming, but you got a lot of stuff that comes down through those drains.
Well,
And we need to protect the lakes.
the bridge too is gonna be an issue.
Yes.
So trying to figure that plan, and then I would imagine you'll partner that up and go to the TPO and then try to get on DOT's 5-year plan.
Wouldn't that be the county? Cause that's,
So for us to get something in Keystone, we have to be in the top 5 of Clay County's DOT priorities. The DOT and TPO seem to be just kind of like first cousins, they're right there, they all talk to each other, so that's where we are with the restaurant. We've been assured that next April, when Clay County Board of Commissioners publishes their list, one of the top 5 things in Clay County is gonna be our intersection. And then DOT will tell us, hey, here's another $100,000 to match, it's gonna cost $700,000, or $350,000, or $350,000. However they go about that funding, that's kind of where we are with that. And I would think the bridge would be its own project, trying to get started.
but we would piggyback up Clay County. People that's outside the city limits, right? I mean, kind of like a team effort.
Yeah, we would have to have a lot of allies in that.
Yeah.
Right, that bridge floods, that's gonna be a priority.
Well,
Can't get down 21.
I would imagine, and I'm not a hydrologic engineer or anything like that, but I imagine some of the problems are gonna be, if you get close to flooding, you're gonna turn off the spigot and you're gonna stop raising the lakes.
And we still haven't rained.
They haven't even turned it on yet, it's way.
Right, we already have problems, and this is Lakeview, I know we have but the street is almost completely flooded. And this isn't just a recent rainstorm,
I know, I live on.
you know? And so we already have a problem. But I would like to, say we add a 4th bucket based on what the mayor just said, and that is business development. I think that's very different than the other 3,
Or like local economic development.
something like
So
that.
it's kind of like a blended, you know,
No, I like that one, yeah.
so.
And that, I will tell you in advance, will be a challenge for you, because not all of your business owners, even though they operate within the city, are your constituents. And there is always a somewhat healthy back and forth with those two.
Yep. Okay, so is our next step then the December meeting? And there we meet with our facilitator and we
So-
try to do with the community.
I think you're gonna need proposals, and then I think you're gonna have to select qualified proposals.
So it sounds like it's over to Charlie then.
So what does a proposal have to include, Rich?
Well, I think that's what we're looking to you as to what is it you're looking to accomplish? Are you looking for a one-day full strategic planning session where the public's invited, where you separate out a certain portion of that for public comment? Are you looking at, there are some that are 3-day events? I think it depends on how in-depth you're thinking you wanna go into each of those different silos.
Okay.
I would also recommend that there's one set of a strategic plan that already exists that we should make sure we look at, and that is the Clay County strategic plan, not their comprehensive plan, but their strategic plan.
They spend
Because-
a lot of time on that.
Yes, and if we can marry up and we can say, you know, our stuff in our city is in line with your stuff, let's work together on it, we'll get a lot of support from them. But if we are completely in the blind and we completely ignore what they have done, it's gonna be harder for us.
You may want to also consider splitting up your strategic planning session where you have some during the day and some in the evening, so that you try to provide enough opportunity for people that work and maybe people that are home to come out and provide comment.
I agree with that.
We could do like a Saturday and a Sunday also, if we want to do 2 days.
Sunday is one of those days, Sunday, Wednesday night, most governments stay away from.
Not here in this town Sunday, I think that would be a good idea.
Just an idea.
I
You're
hear you.
with Boy Scouts all the time.
No, I know, but there's a lot of church folks that would appreciate that. So I guess we just need to look at what we want, I can reach out and find out what Jack's Beach did, because I really like the formatting that they use, the simplicity of it, the period of time it took them, and they're much bigger than we are, I mean, a little bigger than we are people-wise. And she did, it was University of, South Florida, and they do have a specific site, I went on there today, for strategic planning.
So is
training.
this another RFP we need to write to include the scope of what we want, or we throw it out to the University of South Florida, these other universities?
I don't think it has to be like a page or two, it
Okay.
doesn't be quite that complex.
Okay.
You're putting out to try to create a uniform set of expectations so that you can get,
I can probably find what they used to get the, because they
I'm
probably do
sure there's
something.
many of them out there.
Yeah, okay.
And I would ask that we focus on strategic planning and not on our vision, our mission statements. If we wanna do that, we can do that on our own, we don't need, university help with that.
Well, Councilman, you said, like, the December meeting, you can do yourselves homework to come back to that December meeting with the proposed changes and hash that out then.
We think, Madam Mayor?
No, I think it's right. I think identify the 4 buckets, and we each take those 4 buckets, and we plug it with what we think fits in those buckets, and we come back and we
No,
know.
that's not what it was.
Yeah, mission and vision,
The mission and the vision statements.
Oh,
if you wanna make any amendments to that.
oh, I got you. I
Do
understand.
that in December.
Gotcha.
Are you
Yes.
wanting that to come as an action item for the December meeting?
I would like to.
Okay.
Well, we're not having
I'm
a
sorry, that's-
December.
Or not
The
December.
hydrogen or
We're having a
Workshop.
Workshops,
It's
okay.
a workshop, yes.
That's okay too.
Yeah, we can discuss it.
Okay.
So this short 1-2 page RFP I'm looking at, and Mayor's gonna look at our 4 strategic planning buckets, if you will, or operations and maintenance / sustainability, same term, events, infrastructure, and business development, economic development. That's what we're gonna go out and say, hey, we want a facilitator from your university or whatever to come back and help us.
Develop the plan.
Okay.
I like it.
I want to make sure I have those 4 buckets. What did you say again, Charlie? 4 buckets?
Operations and maintenance, that was
Slash
Councilman,
sustainability.
yeah, sustainability, events. It was number 2, infrastructure, number 3, water, sewer, drains, all that good stuff. And then road resurfacing,
Lights, signage.
And what was 4?
business development, economic growth.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then you can just start off with what you already do. OCD functions, the Christmas stuff, we used to do movies in the park. Just think back to what the
Yeah, so, yeah, that'll be part of it also, I think, the mindset of it.
Yeah, we have lots of events for 2025.
I think it's great.
We don't need to add any more?
Do our guests have any input on what we've been sharing tonight that you guys think you can offer different, or do you support, or how do you feel for where we're going? No?
Sounds good. Yeah, I agree with your plan. I think it's very important to have community input on it.
Yes. I will make sure it gets well marketed. I'm gonna probably ask to put it in the paper. I'm gonna do a blast, because folks just don't come. And even though we ask them to come.
And Mayor, there are some governments, and this costs a little bit of money, that will send out surveys to your businesses, or they'll send surveys to your residents and try to solicit feedback as well before you actually have the session, so the more information you have at that point.
Right.
So, one of my master's degrees, I wanted people to come hear me give my presentations before I gave them. And so, close, I bought lunch. I had pizza one day, I had sandwiches one day, and so if we provide free food, maybe more of the public will come.
Well, and we have a format,
I do.
and honestly, the format is like the Food Truck Fridays, where you can bring food trucks in and have it to,
Yep.
Okay.
I'll tell you what, put it on Facebook, you'll get responses.
Well, we'll do all that, do all those things.
Serious.
Yeah, do all
Sure.
those.
Can I throw a request out? And this is something I've dealt with all the years, is when if you're presenting something, it needs to be, we need to have it in our hands ahead of the time of the meeting, so that we have an opportunity to look at it. And all of this is gonna be very detailed, and to have it sit in front of you when you first get here, and try to, especially for me, comprehend all this stuff. Whatever anybody is presenting needs to be sent to the clerk and sent out to us, so we can read over it over the weekend or whatever, at least 3 days before a meeting. That way, if we have any questions to staff, we can get everything taken care of before the meeting.
That's a
Well-
great idea.
Well, yeah, in support of Stephanie trying to adhere to the sunshine rules, any things for our agenda or any attachment should be to her 7 days prior to our meetings. 7 days. So when she sends those emails out to us, we have to respond with what we're going to submit. And if we miss the deadline, then that just means we may need to do it next time. I know I have a stack of things on my desk that are gonna be on the agenda for next month, that I will formulate and send in the appropriate time. Even I got these that night before the deadline for today. But we have to be respectful of that and trying to help her, because there's a lot of steps involved in that process. And it has to be to the public, because then it causes the public to question transparency.
Exactly.
And we had problems with this last year because we just weren't getting things out sooner. And it has been a focused effort to change that this year, and I think we're on target and doing a good job with it. And that's something we have to be mindful of, as all of us need to own that. So, I agree, I think we have to, it gives us time to also look at materials and formulate what we feel about what we're seeing.
Something else, just think about the mission statement and the vision. Open up like a contest, like high school, something like that, just see what they come up with.
So, to that, since I became mayor, I wanted to change our motto, or our logo, or whatever it's called. City of Keystone Heights, progress since 1925. And I just think that's kind of lame. I mean, when I think about marketing, and I think our lake's coming back, all the cool things we got going on, I'm thinking, I know we could do better, and that is exactly what I want to do, is reach out to the high school, or, the public, to ask for their ideas on what that should be. And I think it should center around the lakes, or just what are we, Tree City, of course we've made progress since 1925, for God's sake. But anyway, that is something that I have wanted to change. And I think we could do way better.
It's on the logo.
I know.
I'm gonna have some dead old council come after you now.
But I think
It
that's
goes
an
to
opportunity for
Councilman
them to
Pat.
get creative and do that.
Thank you, because they come up with some cool stuff.
I know. All right, are we good? We know what we're doing? And then our
could I-
next meeting, go ahead.
Because we were talking about working on the comprehensive plan simultaneously. If at all, maybe we could put a bug, and Charlie could put a bug in the ear of the CCUA, because their section was significant, and say, hey, this is coming, would you start to plan to work on your section?
For updates of where they were in 2011 or whatever.
Yeah, well, one of the things I'd be really curious about, like, in there, they talked about some planned upgrades to capacity in their treatment plant that were going to occur in 2012 and 2013. I don't know, so that'll be my first question, okay, you know, so of their planned stuff, I'm wondering what they did do, what they didn't do, type of thing. And, since it's such a significant part of the plan, the comprehensive plan, if we can get them started or let them know it's coming, I think that would be to our benefit. Okay. That's all.
When is our next workshop?
Right now, you're looking at the 30th.
Next week, yes, that employment committee meeting for the
No, no,
employment.
I
Oh,
mean
for this,
strategic.
December, let me pull it up right now. The speed of lightning. December 9th at 6 p.m.
Okay. All right, what day is that?
That is,
Monday, it's the second Monday night.
yes. And then before you adjourn, just to remind everybody, Stella has their big party on the 25th.
Friday.
Everybody should have an email about that. The employment committee meeting, if anybody's interested, has been scheduled to, October 30th in the pavilion at 1 p.m. is what you guys agreed to, you guys.
Is it 1 or 2?
It was 2 p.m. I'll have an agenda out shortly at the end of this week for that, if
Okay.
anybody's interested.
And also, I think Sacred Net is at the church Thursday night.
You are correct, Madam Mayor.
Anything else?
Just something for the good of the order. I talked with Clay County Environmental yesterday, and they got back with me like last night, pretty quickly, and asked, could we begin to pick up some of our own debris? Clay County's contracted to pick up all the debris, and my acknowledgement on those emergency operations center call at the end of both storm sessions was, hey, City of Keystone is gonna be on the hook if we pick up all of Clay County for your city limits, basically. And I get that sounds right. So FEMA can come back and reimburse 100%, and do 75 and 25 us. But I asked, I said, you know, we've got Halloween coming up, we've got these tree limbs and stuff sitting in front of everybody's house. So our public works guys are gonna start tomorrow. FCC was also down here today and just piling up. If you remember where those dumpsters were when we were doing the recycling, but you had to take the dumpster by the dog park, and they'll pick it up from there. So we're just gonna divert off some grass cutting.
They picked it up last week, they came with a big dumpster, and they had a.
Yeah, some areas around here.
Well, they
they
didn't
picked
pick it
up-
all up though, they only picked
Correct.
up.
Yeah,
They
so
were
we're-
in a little pile up.
I'd like to get as much of it picked up.
I
before we
oh,
go
yeah,
back.
yeah, especially with the
And
kids.
so just letting y'all know
It's a
that
safety
it's
thing.
gonna happen. And, next year is not a election year for the Florida legislature, so session will be March, April. There'll be a number of committee weeks, January, February, maybe even one in December. Once, no, they don't take office till January.
No, they take office immediately.
Okay.
Their,
So, I say all that.
Organizational session usually is in November.
You guys, if you have things, specific requests from the Florida legislature, we would need to adopt those. November 18th would be a great evening to do that, so we know what we're wanting and we're at least in front of it a little bit.
Deadlines of when you have to submit appropriations requests.
Yeah, so if there are big ticket items, something that you guys don't want to do, I'll draft something, what's tonight, Tuesday, by the end of the week, and just send some ideas for starters. I mean, it was a bigger deal, in some of the